So we have been talking with a lot of scientists, a lot of athletes that actually they have a very interesting point of view about very different topics, from biodiversity to climate to the industry. But what I feel is that we are talking with guys that they are my age or older, so we are like talking with the ones that we has been creating the problem, or we have found the problem and we see, okay, what to do now. But I believe that it's important to talk with the next generations, the guys and girls that they will that they found this problem and that they will need to solve, because probably your generation, we were a bit too late. We did not the job for it, so we are just passing all this shit to those kids, and I'm very sorry for that, Sebastian and Kate. But I think if we are in the hands of people like you, we are in a good direction. So first of all, thank you for joining us, and just to start, like a small introduction of who are you, what you are doing.
Okay, so I'm Sebastian, obviously. I'm 15 years old. I grew up in Santa Barbara, California. And as I said before, running has always been a thing for me. I've always loved the nature and the outdoors. And just they basically growing up, it was my backyard. I feel like through the years of my running career, um, I've inspired people younger than me to go get outside and start trail running. And that's really special to me to know that I'm the reason that they're out there having fun. Through my life, runs and hikes as a youngin started to become longer runs. And then, as I said before, I did my first ultra when I was 9 years old. And when I was 13, I actually became the youngest qualifying finisher for the Western States 100 at Black Canyon 100K. So that is something really special to me also. So to sum it up, I'm just a 15-year-old ultra runner that is very interested in the sport and wants to keep doing it forever, and a believer of climate change and to help stop it from happening.
So my name's Katie and I'm from Essex in the UK, so that's kind of near London. And I study outdoor adventure in sports at college. And yeah, similar to Seb, I'm sort of a distance runner, but I do a bit of everything because obviously down south it's very sort of track and road based, which I enjoy as well. But the distance in the mountains is obviously where it's at for me, I think. Similar to Seb in the aspect that going sort of to places like the Lake District and the Peak District, if some of the people from the UK are familiar with those, but yeah, sort of bringing that sort of like me running in those places and then coming back down south, people were seeing that, and yeah, it's just really great to know that I'm sort of helping people that sort of don't really see the outdoors now, if that makes sense, because living near London, a lot of people are quite sheltered from that sort of stuff, and then they don't really realise what the effects of climate change are actually doing to places like that because they've never been or experienced places like that before. Yeah, and I think obviously studying outdoor adventure, I just love the outdoors, anything and everything. I mean, cycling, swimming, anything in the outdoors. It's where it's at. It's a place to be. Yeah, that's kind of it for me, really. Pretty much everything.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think all of us like feel this connection with the outdoors and with nature, and that's something very special that we are lucky to enjoy. And as you mentioned, probably the athlete career has helped you to get closer to this environment and to this nature, and probably to take more conscience about that. Yeah, we need to preserve it. When and how did you get concerned about climate change, the loss of biodiversity, these things?
Um, I knew it's always been around. I think ever since I was young, obviously watching the news, I think it's something that's always been there, but never something that's actually become a concern to me in particular until I think when I really started studying about it. I mean, studying about things such as you say, biodiversity, yeah, the lack of systems that we have that have been put in place to support it, I think really had a massive effect. I think as my age, people my age, where I live, they are very aware of climate change. There's a lot of protests that go around in London that the youth sort of start. But yeah, I think coming from an education point of view, it's definitely something that I've sort of gained more knowledge about.
When I first kind of saw it actually happen to me in real life was kind of like Katie, just kind of seeing it on the news for a while. Like it's there, but basically I grew up running obviously on my local trails. Like I had like a good six of them that I ran on for 8 years, and then the Thomas Fire happened, which burned 500,000 acres of like land all around California, and I thought all those trails were going to be gone forever. So that fire really was like an eye opener. And then a few months after that, there was a terrible mudslide that killed a bunch of people that lived in my town. So it was just, and that was out of nowhere too. So it was really crazy to see that. It was definitely an eye opener.
Yeah, it seems like listening to you, it seems that at your age you are way more educated about climate issues than I was at your age, or even like at 20 years old. And that's something that I think that your generation is much more prepared on taking seriously the measures that we need to take to fight it. And how, because I has been practicing outdoor sports for all my life, and I has been like probably just enjoying the dream, like not really thinking about the consequences of these lifestyles. And you, as a young athlete, that you have like all your career in ahead of you, like do you think like do you take into account like that like climate issues or the footprint of your activities when you practice or thinking about 10 years from now, how this will affect your activities?
Trees Not Teas, that movement, things like that. Do you know the ultra runner Dan Lawson? He's a British guy, I think, and yeah, he created a brand called Rerun, which obviously is recycled running gear that people send in and then they resell or they recycle. I think things like that and things like people not actually accepting t-shirts and like the end of races and consciously making the effort to go the extra mile to make sure that they reduce their carbon footprint, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And what it seems is that yeah, like it's these things like it take like a lot of years for me to understand like the importance of like not like yeah to do these things and you have that from a very young age, like you are doing all these actions and being conscious, and that's something that it will accelerate for sure. And as I said before, like we are sorry to give that problem to your generation, but as I mentioned, like you feel much more prepared than us for that because the education that you had. But what are you more concerned about, like climate change, the biodiversity, the pollution? What's the thing that is really like? Is it scaring you? It's you feel scared about that, or it's just like something that is like, oh, it's there and it's just there.
I definitely I try to not be scared by it, because I feel like I don't know, I feel like that just wouldn't do well for me, but it's definitely there, and I'm not one of those people that just thinks that it's nothing. I definitely know it's there, and I want to help try and prevent that by reducing my carbon footprint, just trying to do everything I can to avoid that in the future.
Yeah, I think for me personally, it is something that does very much frighten me. I think not to the point where it's kind of like stresses me out, but I think there is a fear in the back of my mind. It's just things such as things that are kind of innocent that can't fend for themselves, like animals, sort of everything in the rainforest, the biodiversity. I think it was something like the rainforest holds 90% of the world's biodiversity, which is really sad to think that their home is literally being destroyed for our personal benefit. But yeah, I think it's something that does genuinely scare me and yeah, puts a lot of people in danger when they're not careful and they don't think about sort of what they do.
Yeah, and that's Yeah, that's scaring me, but I'm an optimistic in life, so I think like we can
Yeah.
fight, we can solve these problems, and it's hard to picturize how will be like outdoors in 15 in 20 years from now. Like I have been changed. Like I am 30. 34 years old, and I have been seeing like how mountains has changed in this time, and we see that now it's accelerating. So what do you think it will be different in that time, like when you are in your maturity as athletes?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard to say because I think the future is so unpredictable. But as you say, I mean, glass half full, not glass half empty. I'm quite optimistic that people like obviously me and Seb will make sure and crack down on the fact that people will reduce their carbon footprint. Whether or not, I think a big thing would be trying to do it without people that don't really take it into consideration that much, without them realizing, because I think it's the little things that really do add up. And I think racing wise, if big organizations and stuff take their responsibility and take matters into their own hands about how they deal with sort of their carbon footprint, then that will have a sort of a ripple effect on everyone that is involved with their events.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. Like how, yeah, we need to change probably how we have been living, all of us, and change our lifestyles so we are more sustainable. And I believe that's something that we haven't been doing. We have been uh, just not taking environment into account on any of our activities, and it feels that you are doing that from now, and that's something that we really appreciate, I think, because we feel that yeah, we are in good hands for this. And yeah, what's the compromise that you are going to take on that? Like let's say like on terms of traveling for competitions, or like lifestyle, like food wise, shopping. Do you feel that okay, maybe I could do all these, but I don't want because it's not good for the planet?
Well, my family has always done just like car trips. We drive pretty much everywhere. Like we just drove to Colorado from Santa Barbara, so that was like 17-hour drive. But yeah, definitely just not doing it as much would definitely like this like the small things that each person can do a little bit less will have a great impact on like the whole world's well-being in terms of climate change. Um, I mean, in terms of like going to competitions and stuff, it really just depends on how big of like if it's like a huge national championship and I have to fly there, then of course I would. But I feel like just flying around, like if you can drive there, I think you should just drive because it uses a lot less pollution for sure.
Yeah, so similar to Seb, I think making the conscious effort to try and put things in place to reduce your carbon footprint, and that would obviously be very beneficial. I think personally, I tried to go vegetarian a few weeks ago because that was a big thing for me. Obviously, being a sort of animal lover, it was massive for me to at least try and become sort of predominantly vegetarian, but I just became anemic. That sounds really bad, but yeah, it's not that bad. But yeah, I do think I did need meat in my diet, but now I just like to sort of stay predominantly plant based, but I do have meat in my diet. But I think as long as I'm still making that effort, without sort of having too much, if that makes sense. But yeah, making that effort for me and doing what's right for me, but still, yeah, trying to reduce my carbon footprint as much as possible. I think traveling wise to races and stuff, uh, I'm not too sure to be honest. I think, as Seb said, it really does depend on the race, times as well, and yeah, just everything like that. I think. Yeah, I mean, me and my dad drive around in his like converted camper van, and I mean that's probably not very fuel efficient, but I think it would probably save a lot of because we run that off solar. I think yeah, most of his van runs off solar. Like we power his
Awesome. Yeah.
fridge. Yeah, we have a little TV as well. It's pretty cool. But yeah, we drive that to many places and like races. Like we keep that there, and then we drive to like the Lake District or the Peak District and do it in that rather than driving, staying at a hotel, and then like driving back. So I think just everyone doing their little part and making the effort would really have a good effect.
Yeah, that's good points that you are bringing here. And just to finish, like now you have a audience full of athletes and people probably more on my age than yours. And what should we do? Like, what should we do to try to live these mountains and these outdoors a bit better for you to be able to enjoy it? What would be your message for all of us?
Where I'm from, everything seems to be pretty good, but I know around the world, it's just a lot of pollution, like around the trails. Like when I go out, like when I do certain races, the race directors will be super clear on picking up stuff after you, and I'll still see water bottles on the ground, like goo gels on the ground, and it's just I always pick it up and put it in my pack because it's just like those little things that you can do. Like it really doesn't take that much work to just pick something up and put it in your pack. But yeah, I mean, just cleaning up after yourself on the trails. I mean, I know the mountain biking community is really good at that, because certain trails are mainly just for hikers. So when certain trails are allowed for mountain biking, they make sure to do really well cleaning up after themselves, and that we really like when I feel like, yeah, I mean, just the little things, like I said, picking up after yourselves on the trails will really go a long ways.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Seb, I think just people thinking before they actually do things. Like, I think a big thing, especially for people my age and teens, especially, just thinking like shopping wise of fast fashion, thinking to yourself, do you actually need that? Or is that just something that is just there? I mean, for me, I like to put it back and then like forget about it. But if I can't remember the actual like item, then I probably didn't need it or want it that bad in the first place. So I think everyone just thinking about before they take that step. And yeah, I think that stems even further with sort of bigger organisations and sort of hire people to think before you actually put things in place and yeah, do things. Because a lot of times there is a chance for, especially bigger brands, to take more responsibility for what they are doing. Like, I think, I can't remember who else was in the podcast, but they were saying about how is it actually truly like good for the planet, or is it a marketing thing to make them look good? I think that's a big thing. Actually, do people individually doing their research and yeah, looking at the details behind everything before they go into it, because a lot of the time it's a big marketing ploy. Yeah.
That's super good points that you make here, and we will make sure that all the guys listening they are taking advice on that. And yeah, thanks for the conversation, and very good luck for the next. I believe that you have a great career ahead of you, and hope to see you soon in some races.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And thank you guys all very much and thank you, especially Hugh, for inviting me here. It's been really great talking to you guys.